Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good.
Good
Well, welcome. I said, we have a great panel, and yeah, Brian, and also I want you to introduce yourself, everybody. You're taking over the panels, and we're going to be discussing, future of the streaming entertainment, which is a big deal right now these days, and we have part of the expert in this industry, and Brian also. Crypto Film Fund. He's the president of the Crypto Film Fund, and Michael Homeier is a lawyer in entertainment. Jeanette's been in the film industry for a long time, couple of shows. I will let them introduce themselves, and then Herman is a big distribution of the digital distribution. So we want to know what's the future of the streaming. What anybody going to go? Are you going to go back to the movie theater anytime soon? And so all those good things. Brian, take it over.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming, Jeanette, Harmon, Michael. Thank you, guys. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Brian Herskowitz. I'm the CCO of Crypto Film Fund. I'm also a professor of screenwriting at Boston University here in Los Angeles. I work with graduate students in screenwriting. I'm a screenwriter, producer, director, and sometimes caterer. I'm kidding about that last part. I don't actually cater. Okay. In any case, we are going to talk a little bit about streaming, but I actually want to broaden the conversation a little bit about where we're headed in the industry in terms of financing and independent production. But to begin with, let's get everybody just to give everyone a real brief introduction to yourselves. And Jeanette, can we begin with you?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. Good morning, everyone. From Los Angeles. I run a company called Alliance Cinema. What we are known for, what I do is I finance and produce feature film content and television series. Anything from small budgets, 3 million, 2 million, up to I think the highest level we have funded so far and produces 35 million. We tend to do commercially driven projects, and they're all English speaking. They're made here. Well, they're made all over the world, but they are distributed in 180 countries around the world. I also work as a professor at UCLA teaching entertainment finance. Actually, recently wrote a book on it called Entertainment Finance Today. And for me, it's about watching this industry transforming from when I started in the 80s in making movies to, oh my God, you have the book. Thank you. To doing it today, which is quite different. And I think we're going to cover this on this panel, so I'm not going to go in there. But I've been doing this for about 25 years, so that ages me a little. And I've worked, I produced on all the continents. I think the only one I haven't produced on yet is Australia. But I've shot pretty much everywhere, and our financing comes mainly from Europe, and we're now doing funding also in the US, but it's the first time that I actually get funding out of the US. We tend to get our money from European investors. And what we finance is we don't really do the art house world, because I wouldn't know how to value that. It all has to do with what's a project worth to mitigate investors' risks. But we're funding mainly entertainment that is commercial, so films or television series.
Very good. Michael.
Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where people are. I am Michael Homeier. I am a corporate transactional and securities attorney. In the latter incarnation, I primarily work with businesses in a variety of industries, including entertainment, not limited to entertainment, but including entertainment, to raise capital for those businesses from individual investors. Those investors could be immigrant investors, they could be crowdfunding investors, they can be opportunity zone investors looking for tax benefits, even projects that are put on the blockchain. I write the investment papers for the business that allows the business to raise money from those investors in compliance with the US securities laws. And I have been working with clients raising big amounts of dollars all the way down to clients raising CF-sized money, which is still about $1 million US at the moment, but the FCC has proposed increases. I hope everybody has heard about this, to improve the Jobs Act exemptions and basically increase or ease the way capital is raised under exempt offerings here in the United States. So that's an exciting opportunity for a securities lawyer representing those businesses to say that the work that we do will actually have a chance of helping those businesses raise the money in a lawful way. I apologize in advance. I am puppy sitting this morning, and he's a frisky little guy, but I'm going to try to keep it down to a dull roar on this side.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Harmon,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, my name's Harmon Kaslow. My background is as a lawyer. I have for the last 20 years just been working with high net worth people who want to invest in the motion picture business. As a result of those contacts, we have developed a number of applications that now have a lot of interest, given the way the world has changed recently. We have developed a platform, we call it Cinema Cloudworks. It is a fully transparent theatrical booking system that essentially marries marketing and distribution, pulls in analytics from rent tracks to allow you to identify high performing theaters. It pulls in online noise to see how effective your marketing campaign is doing. And it gives the stakeholders a view in real time what is going on with regard to their bookings and collections. In connection with that, we've also built another application. We call it the iScreening Room, the most secure watermarking technology on the planet for testing movies online. Done about 30 or 40 of those movies, and the amount of actionable data that we gather not only helps these stakeholders optimize their marketing campaigns, but it also allows them to do some real world projections based on the results and the ability to compare those results with movies that were previously theatrically released. And then the third application that we're building and I think actually has the greatest value today, which is we've developed an SEO framework motion picture website. Most of our websites using pure white hat techniques. We don't do anything unethical or black hat. Find very high Google search results. People still go to Google when they look for a movie. You want to be number one, and these websites harvest an enormous amount of data regarding people who are interested in the movies. And right now, before this call, we're just working with the US distributors in funneling that interest directly to either a premium VOD experience through the iScreening Room or a transactional VOD experience, just removing the friction that exists today with distributors looking at the world as, oh, I'm going to go create my own channel on the internet, versus when somebody is looking for Tiger King, I'm going to serve them up that immediately. I'm going to take them into a place that is official. They will give me their information. I'll deliver to them a very friction-free transaction for them to watch it. And the margins are significantly higher and better than if you go through any of the existing platforms and become one of the hundreds of thousands of titles that they make available to their subscribers.
Great. One of the first questions I want to ask everybody is, here we are with COVID-19, production has stopped, theaters are closed down. It's going to take some time for the industry to ramp back up. And what do you foresee in the future in terms of the way that people are going to take their entertainment? Is it going to continue to be driven primarily by the streaming services? Are we going to see theaters coming back? How is that going to affect the pattern of the consumer? And anybody want to take a shot at that first?
Sure, I can give you my 2 cents for what it's worth. I think it's, First of all, it's obviously an interesting time. What do you do with this? For me, I was producing a series. We did stop production. And what we're doing right now is we are focusing on the development part of the series. We are writing the scripts. We are getting everything ready to go back up when we can go back up. The other thing we're focusing on, because we do different projects of different levels, we have a television series that is a reality show. Now, those shows tend to have smaller teams, usually under 10 people. And we're hoping, and we're already setting up to be ready to go with that pretty quickly. So that's an easy one for us to restart right away. The scripted series, we're focusing on writing the script and getting all the scripts done for the season. As it relates to the cinemas, I personally think that they got, in our industry, I think they have the largest hit in terms of loss of money, loss of revenues. I'm not sure if they're going to come back to where they were, given that people are now forced to be used to watch content online. What you are looking forward to, the visit in the theaters, well, if you want to see that movie, you go online, you click on it, you do an on-demand thing, and you pay your whatever fee you have, and you do it online. So the behavior is literally being forced to change because of how it is everything right now. And maybe some people say, it's not so bad watching a movie online. I don't need to schlep into the movie theaters. I can do it online. So it's really interesting to see if this is going to change. Am I going to get out of my sweats and into my nice clothes to go into the movie theater, or am I going to sit in the sweats and watch that, next Star Wars movie online? So that I think it's going to be interesting simply because people that would have maybe theoretically not watched something online because they like the movie-going experience might figure out, oh my God, this is not so bad. I do think it's going to linger on a little bit, is my personal feeling. I think the audience behavior has changed due to what's happening right now, moving us online. And I think that some of those audiences are new audience that might not have done it before. They might just stick. So I think it's going to be hard to get back there. On the other hand, if you're cooped up with your family for 2 months, you might welcome any opportunity to get out of the house.
Any opportunity.
So you might just run into the movie theaters and say, "Get me out of here and get me my popcorn." So it's really something where we're all just guessing. Is my view on this. Given the industry is moving onto the streaming platforms more and more, we see it with network stations. We see the studios are forming streaming platforms. Obviously, there is a whole move into that direction already going, COVID there or not there. So I think the world of watching content has changed already, and I think it's going to change more as we go forward.
Harmon, what do you think? You're involved in the
so
theatrical.
we're in the trenches, right now. Just foundationally, about 14% of the population in America regularly goes to the movie theaters to see movies. So you're looking at a slice of the population. We sort of view those people as people who like fine dining. They could always dine at home for less, but they like to go to the theater. What we're seeing, what we expect to see is the cinemas are going to reopen slowly. They're going to lower their ticket prices to bring back in the audience. And the success or failure of that reopening is really going to be a function of the cooperation that they get from the major studios, because it will be those event level movies that will bring the audience back. The chains are not going to change their position on the pay window. They're going to insist on a 90-day window, or they will not play the movie. So, I just think they will just ramp up, and it's really a function of their getting cooperation from the studios. The Trump administration had mentioned the loosening of the Paramount decree, which is unique in the world, that our studios cannot own an interest, but for Disney, own an interest in the theater chains. So there's a bit of a conflict there. So they just need to cooperate. They need to figure it out. But it looks like the pathway will be low ticket prices to then scale them back up. And it'll just be a function of whether the studios are willing to cooperate and rebuild that stream of revenue.
Mhm. Michael, do you think that there's going to be a resurgence of things like what is it, Movie Pass services, where the theatrical model gets more of a subscription base rather than individual theaters getting individual tickets?
Yeah, I think that would be ideal. It's going to depend a lot on whether the population decides how to react once this virus is behind us. If people are shell-shocked and not willing to invest, then I think there's going to be less money available for those businesses to institute those kinds of programs. They'll be looking for subscribers as a fundraising tool, but I think that that's going to be a big opportunity if people decide they want to put their money out to work, either as subscribers or as one-off, and they'll just go on an event-by-event basis.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there has to be content that will draw them into the theater, whatever that theater may be, whether it's at home or outside. And so my personal focus as a business lawyer is helping the businesses raise capital to provide the content that will get people either to sign up as subscribers or to come on to one-off events and watch them that way. Again, whether they're going back to a theater or going to a legit stage, or they're staying at home and watching on the laptop or whatever. I suspect that there are going to be a lot of opportunities for investors, and hopefully that will result in increased availability of capital. I don't think the shutdown has been long enough to really destroy more than some folks. Not that I don't have sympathy for them, of course I do. But looking at it just as a numbers base, I think that there's going to be a lot of money that will come into the market, and that the changes in crowdfunding are going to allow that money to be tapped by more of the independent producers as opposed to just big corporate producers and the studios. I think there's going to be more opportunity for independent production to tap the capital it needs, which is a lot less than the capital required by the majors. And there could be a lot of content and a lot of people having the opportunity to invest in the generation of that content, who always wanted to be film investors, but never had the opportunity before. So I admit, for a lawyer, I'm a half full kind of guy, as opposed to half empty. But I am an optimist. I do think that there's likely to be a resurgence in investment activity and perhaps an increase once the economy gets reopened. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, that brings me kind of a good segue into some of the changes in the crowdfunding universe and the way that people can invest, and particularly right now with the idea that you can get more transparency and more security with a blockchain, and then fractionalizing by tokenizing your products. Now, of course, it's not quite there in the United States, but in the rest of the world it is. When crowdfunding first became in vogue, the thought was that you could throw up a project and you would get fans and they would invest. And of course, it turns out that that's not necessarily the case, that you have to have a huge marketing machine behind you. What do you see as the advantages, each of you, what do you see as the advantages in terms of the way that crowdfunding, cryptocurrency, and blockchain is going to impact film investors and hopefully bring a new class of investor to the market? And Michael, you want to start, and then we'll go around the horn.
You know, yeah, sure. I actually thought that what was mentioned in one of the prior panels about for example, the increase in the ceiling allowed for the regulation crowdfunding investment raises. The SEC has proposed raising that from $1 million to $5 million. And that is likely to happen, I believe. And I think that one of the salutary effects of that is that by increasing the maximum, it actually increases the opportunity for people who are looking to raise less than that increased maximum to benefit as well. I think there's likely to be increased utilization of crowdfunding and not just regulation CF, but it's the small one. That's the one that people think of the most. You know, A+ is very expensive. Reg D requires only accredited investors, so they have their pluses and minuses. But looking at pure, if you will, pure crowdfunding, regulation CF, when the volume of that activity increases, as it will if you raise the ceiling from $1 million to $5 million, is going to mean that the people looking for only 100,000, because they're going to shoot their film through their phone and they want to have friends and family invest. I think that it increases the likelihood that people are going to see this is an avenue that can work for them. There's going to be more press, there's going to be more attention, people are going to be made more aware of these options. And you know, money is key in entertainment. For content to get produced, it requires budget. And because of the high risk in the environment, it's hardest to get entertainment investors, especially at the retail level. And this has always been the conflict between crowdfunding, looking to the unaccredited middle-class investor, as opposed to the well-heeled, wealthy investors that have always participated in entertainment. I think there's an opportunity really that's going to only increase for middle-class investors to see that there is this opportunity to participate in the entertainment industry on a risk-reasonable basis. I mean, assuming that entertainment's always going to be higher risk than, let's say, real estate, but still that people who want to be involved can be involved without worrying about losing their house, losing their shirt, and still be involved in, you know, sexy glamour projects. I think that that opportunity is going to increase dramatically through what has happened. And frankly, remember the SEC proposed these rules at the beginning of March, these rules changes really before the virus and the shutdowns took over the country. I think there's going to be more attention placed to them now as we're coming back out from the shutdowns. And that's only going to increase these opportunities. I think it's an exciting time for people, producers, creative types who are looking to get financing to do their creativity. I think it's a really an exciting time.
Great. Jeanette, do you take into consideration any kind of crowdfunding, whether it's equity or reward-based, when you start to go out to raise funds for your projects, or is that something that you kind of stay away from?
First of all, for the kind of projects that I was doing, it wasn't really an option. And I'm very excited about what Michael is mentioning, because I do believe that the increase will actually help our industry, and it will actually help investors. Because with giving, when you look at a project, let's assume you get the $5 million raise. You can make a movie that's between $15 and $20 million with a $5 million equity component. And if you look at that, you will automatically reduce the risk significantly. The problem with the small crowdfunding schemes is that you are forced to invest in something that will likely, I would say, you know, likely not see the light of day. And that's basically, you know, throwing money down the toilet. But if you have the option now to put money into something that can raise up to $5 million, you as an investor actually have the option to invest in something that's actually meaningful, that could make it into the theaters, that can have A-level stars, that can actually create real revenues. So I think this is going to change the landscape quite a bit. And even for me, because it will open the doors for me to investment portals that I can use for movies that I make, because they are commercial driven movies with A-level stars.
Right.
And that funding is about the level of equity that we put in all our movies. So I'm excited to see this happening.
Yeah, excellent. And Harmon?
Yeah, so we kind of we view things a little bit differently, in the sense that most of the time we're dealing with people who have completed films, and the critical assumptions that they had when they raised the money to produce the film, most of the time were not realistic, in the sense that, yes, I'm going to go make a film and a studio is going to buy it. And that is the exception and not the rule. So they're then faced with a situation of, how do I go and generate revenues off of this film? And, you know, the lack of P&A puts them in a position where they're not going to see a lot of opportunities. So one of the things that, we've been discussing with the people out there like yourselves who are raising money is to create some pool of money that would be available for prints and advertising, perhaps doing it through a token or some other scenario. If you get lucky and a studio buys the movie, you can return the money, maybe give them a little bit of a premium for giving you access to it. But if they don't, then you can immediately transition into a revenue generating scenario by getting the film theatrically released or getting it put up on the platforms to start generating revenue.
I've spoken to you, Harmon, and Michael and Jeanette. From your book, I think we're simpatico here. But one of the things that I've seen as an independent film producer over and over again is a passionate filmmaker who wants to see their work made, but doesn't have much of a plan beyond that. And they don't have the marketing in place. They don't have the P&A in place. They don't have the stars in place. They go and make their film, and then they don't have any way of recouping any money because they don't have everything up front. So one of the things that you both mentioned, and we had discussed a little bit about, Harmon and I, about, what designates a star that helps your picture. And you had mentioned, Jeanette, that you work mainly with A-level talent, which is excellent. But how do you connect that talent? Do you get your funding and then get the talent, or do you get the talent and then get the funding, or is there some sort of convergence there?
For me, and I always say, because I teach at UCLA, I look at things from both sides. I talk a lot with filmmakers who are new. For them, it's a different story, but even I started at some point somewhere. It all starts with a really, really good idea. And it doesn't matter if it's an idea for a movie or if it's an idea for a television show. You can attract strong cast, or the cast you want, by doing something very unique, by really going into the development of your scripts and of your project and really make sure it's good. Because everyone wants to work on something unique. When I talk about cast, they look for specifically material that elevates their range in acting. So when I develop something, I think of two things, because in the first instance, it's just in my head. It's an idea in my head, which may or may not make sense to anyone at that point. But the idea then comes to me and saying, okay, who can I cast that would play the lead in this role, and why would I think they're a good idea? I usually look for people that haven't done this before. So when I did a movie with, at that time it was, Forrest Whitaker, who I wanted for The Experiment. That was a remake from a German Academy Award nominated film. And he's playing in my movie this very nasty character guy that, and at that time he was really not known for something like this. And I just thought, oh my God, it would be so great if he would do this. So I always think out of the box in looking at actors to play something that they haven't played before, because in the end of the day, I have to call their agent and I have to negotiate their salary way, way, way down in order to make that movie happen. So I need some bargaining power in my negotiations with agents, because that's what the next step is going to be. But before I go there, and theoretically, I'm thinking about putting my cast together as to, who would play this, who would be enticed by this. But that doesn't mean that they're actually going to do it. And also, at that point, I don't have the money yet. So I do think about the money in the next level in saying, what would my finance plan look like for this? If I did get my Forrest Whitaker, if I did get my director, how would I go about financing this? This is my, it's early stages, but I have to have a vision. Like when you start a company, any company, you have a business plan, you have a vision for the company. Every movie I do, every television show I work on or create, it's like a little mini business plan for me. So I look at this and saying, if I do this and have these actors and this director, how do I go about financing this? And then I run my numbers, what is it going to be worth in the foreign marketplace? Because most of the things we work on, we don't know what's going to happen to them in the US. So I have to basically pretend it's not going to make me any money. And if I make money in the US, it's gravy. So I go by valuing my product based on the international marketplace. So I have conversations with sales agents or foreign distributors and say to them, I have this idea, I'm thinking of casting so-and-so, what would you pay for this? So I put a little sales sheet together, and that tells me what the value is of my project, meaning movie or film show, internationally. And I work backwards. If I get this, what do I think I can do in pre-sales, if any? Where do I shoot this? Can I get incentives? Maybe I'll shoot in Germany because I get a lot of money there. Maybe I shoot in a state where they're right now having strong incentives. So I'm thinking about putting together a process very early on. And I pretend it's happening. I literally put it on paper like it would be happening. And then you start having conversations with investors. You give them a business plan that shows, this is my intended cast. These are the projections for international. This is my plan for domestic, which may or may not work out. So I'm going to put a 0 here. And here's where I'm going to be shooting. Here's the kind of pre-sales I think I can get, not sure yet, but I think, and here's the equity I'm going to get. Now you equity investor, looking at these numbers, how can I work with you? What risk elements can I mitigate in order for you to come in? So equity is really the first approach I make, but in order to get there, I really have to put together a business structure that makes it real on paper for them to invest into something that may or may not happen at that point. Now, the equity investors I work with, they know that there are changes that will be applicable. So maybe Forrest Whitaker says no, so I have to replace him with someone else. But what I do with this business plan is that I say it's going to be an actor of this level. So if it's not him, who could it be instead of him? But it has to be a real business structure. And that doesn't matter if it's me being an experienced producer who has produced over 45 projects and spent over 250 million in productions, or is it one of my students at the UCLA class who's starting out? We both have to do the same thing. We have to start on a business plan platform to think about the reality of the steps that will come next, so that I can, either him, meaning the new producer, or me, have a conversation with an investor to see the first money coming in. Now, with that first money, I will have conversations with agents and talk about making offers. How much money do I have to pay down? Do I have to make a down payment? Ideally, I don't, but if I do, how much is it going to be? I need to lock my actor in at that moment in order to make this thing real. And it comes back to knowing, obviously talking to a director, making sure the director is in line with your vision, making sure that the cast works with the director, making sure the cast likes the director. So the packaging process is literally the next step after you're starting to put together your business plan.
Right.
That's how I tell most people to go about it. That's how I go about it. And in most cases, it gets me somewhere. It doesn't always get me to the end goal. I work on a lot of projects that are in development hell that never get made, like so many producers. But I tend to focus on things that I think I can get made. And that's what I suggest to most people to do.
Thank you. Michael, you worked in film finance, and you've had a lot of different avenues. I believe some of the clients that you have are in EB-5 immigration investors.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And have you had success with people from that segment coming into the film industry? And if so, how do you think this coming out of this, the recovery, how is that going to affect those people? Are they going to tighten their purse strings? Are they going to be more willing to look for alternative investment?
The EB-5 program is, immigrant investor financing is the program that we're talking about. Historically, there has been almost $300 million raised through EB-5 that has gone into US film production in the last 20 years or so. The wrinkle, though, to that statistic is it didn't go into funding independent film production. Instead, it was essentially funding for a couple of the majors who used the money and could guarantee repayment of that money because they were huge multinational corporations. And so it's one thing to say I invested in a fund that generated revenue for a major studio, and I'm therefore responsible for financing some of the films that studio put out, but really the money probably went into physical plant or operational costs as opposed to actual film production. The problem with immigrant investor financing has always been that the minimum investment is now $900,000 per investor, which sounds great, but you're talking about folks who are putting in a huge amount of money in order to have an investment that meets the program's requirements. Since it's an immigration financing program, the immigrant wants to get the opportunity to get lawful residence in the United States, and they have to make an investment in this program that creates new US jobs as the price of their investment. Typically, historically, those immigrant investors have not made much of a return, but at the end of their investment, after it has created the jobs that enable the investors to get the immigration benefit, they want at least a good chance of getting their principal back. Needless to say, entertainment is the least likely industry, probably, for them to have a good shot at getting their capital back. Not surprisingly, real estate is like at the opposite end of the spectrum, and it shouldn't be a big surprise that in EB5, probably 3/4 of the money that's ever been raised for the program, although it's allowed to be used in any industry, including entertainment, has historically gone into real estate financing, because those investors are putting a lot of money in per head. Recently, again, it was increased from 500,000 to 900,000 as a minimum investment, and they want a decent chance, the investors do, of getting that money back. I don't know, especially since that program has been so popular that it is impacted. I mean, like your teeth get impacted. Investors are in this immigration program for a decade to go all the way through. So it has its complications, and I don't know that it's going to be a ready source of entertainment financing to seek investors from EB5, unless really what you're financing is a studio, or again, something that has a greater than typical entertainment project opportunity of returning capital, because so much money is going in per investor. When it's crowdfunding and investors are putting in $10,000 per investor, or they're putting in $1,000 per investor, or perhaps on some of these micro projects, they're putting in $100 per investor, and these are true middle-class investors. The opportunity to diversify that crowdfunding allows these middle-class investors means that you're actually reducing the risk of investing in an entertainment project if your general rule of thumb remains that if I took $100, if I took $1,000 and I invested in 10 film projects, and one of them broke even or made a little money, it would more than pay me back for the loss of the $900 that I lost on the other 9 projects. You're talking about an avenue for a middle-class investor to actually participate and have some chance of perhaps seeing a return at a price point that meets that middle-class investor. And again, if you're wrong and you lose your shirt, as is typically what happens in entertainment, these people, again, are not losing their house. They're putting in $1,000, or maybe they're putting in $10,000 or whatever. But again, this is the idea behind crowdfunding, is that the individual investor, unlike EB5, where they're putting in $900,000 per investor, or Opportunity Zone, where people are taking tax gain, capital gain that's subject to tax. They want to roll that over, typically large amounts of dollars. Again, I think crowdfunding and crowdfunding combined with blockchain could be the avenue that really allows middle-class investors to participate and fund at a moderate level on a diversified basis a lot of production activity. And again, if the production activity is going to result in a product that will actually have a good chance of seeing the light of day because it's going to get streamed and it doesn't have to go through the gatekeepers at the studios or even some of the large indie producers, there's really an opportunity for people to say, look, even if I lose the money, my movie got made, I put some money into it, I can point to it and say, hey, that's partly mine, and at least have the satisfaction that the product's in the can and gets seen by folks, even if it doesn't turn out to be the greatest financial investment, where people aren't looking for it to be that in the first place.
Thank you, Michael. Harmon, do you feel like there's going to continue to be a robust independent film market in the theatrical release segment? Do we lose Harmon? Harmon's gone. Oh no. Well, we'll just have to carry on without him, I guess. Harmon, you're not there, huh? Okay. All right. So anyway, so one of the other questions that I wanted to ask about is, we're looking.
I'm sorry interrupting you. We're running out of time.
Oh, okay.
Right here, just over there. But it was very great. And then, you can ask your last question. But I want to ask a question from Janet. Do you think with the popularity of the, this Joe Exotic, that you see more of these kind of reality shows and hillbillies in Hollywood or whatever it is? It's just very crazy. You see people, a bunch of people trying to kill each other, and everybody is fascinated about it. So do you see more of these showing up? Are you going back to Jerry Society, going to that, what is that show that I don't even watch it, that they're kind of hitting each other and, on divorce and as all this other thing over there, but it will be more. What do you see?
Well, you're talking about human nature here. So I think people, I mean, for me, I don't produce those shows. We do a show like Dog Whisperer. We're doing it, we do positive kind of shows where people can take something home. These shows that you're describing is not something that we produce. However, I think people watch this. I mean, I found myself watching the Tiger King the other day, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop watching this because when you have authentic characters like this, real people, where you look at them going, really? Then there is something that draws you into this world because it's so crazy. I'm sure there are people that are going to produce some of the stuff, and I think some of it is entertaining. If it gets to a point where it's a little out there, I would probably not want to support it. But I can't speak for people who produce these kind of reality shows, honestly.
What we call train wreck television.
That's good. That's good. Well, I want to thank you guys, and then we have actually the next panels. I mean, we appreciate you. By the way, the Crypto Film Fund, I'm involved in as a disclosure. I'm involved with them also in the Crowdfunding USA, and Michael is our good friend over there. Nice to meet you, and thanks for being here today. And also Herman, it was very fabulous. I wanted to have that, because all of us right now, we're looking at the entertainment. Are we going to go to the movie? Are we going to keep watching it? But this, I think, I hope everything will go well. And, this is a huge business for America, film industry. So especially, I think everything will good. Thank you very much. So we're going to change the gear right now. Thanks, Brian, for taking care of that.
Before we go, just again, I just want to say Jeanette's book is Entertainment Finance Today.
Oh, good.
So if
maybe she can send me a copy of her signature copy of it.
There you go.
Well,
Where can we find it?
quickly,
I'd be glad to pay our audience. Is it in Amazon, Janet?
It is. That's where I got it.
You can get it on Amazon.
You can get it on Amazon?
Yeah. Sydney,
Yes.
can we ask if anyone wants to give either a plug or their contact information if they want people to be able to reach out to them?
Yeah, Janet, how did they get in touch with you?
They can just email me at my website, JeanetteBMilio.com.
Okay, and Michael, you have a law firm right there in the LA area, so I know how can people get in touch with you?
And folks can reach me through LinkedIn. And again, my focus is on helping businesses raise capital legally under the U.S. securities laws. And also, so if anyone's looking to raise capital for their business, or if they're interested in walking an eager beaver little puppy, I could sure be interested in speaking to anyone who wanted to talk.
Thank you so much.
And Brian,
Jeanette,
how do
Michael?
people get in touch with you?
I'm findable almost anywhere, but you can Brian at cryptofilmfund.io is probably the best place to reach me, or you can contact me through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good.
guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much. And so we're gonna go to the next panel. Have a great day. Be safe.
Thanks.
And we're gonna go to the next panel, Doctor. Right here, we're gonna go change the whole shift to the. God, we're gonna changing.